I'm already creating a situation where you're going to have to like edit this down because we're talking about our names.
I can edit it very easily.
Okay.
So I'm very glad to have once again Becca Seeley with us. Becca Seeley visited St. Paul's, I want to say 3 years ago, maybe.
I want to say maybe 5.
Maybe 5.
It was a long time ago, so I'm sad it's been so long. It's good to virtually see you guys again.
It's good. It's good to have you. And at least once a year, I try to have somebody from a different kind of ministry setting or a different part of our church to come in and to talk with the congregation so that they get the vision of a larger church. So it's good to get that broader vision. So last time you told us a lot about your wonderful ministry, and you've been there a good while now.
5.5 years.
So tell us about Lutheran Ministries in higher education and how you're doing these days. And
I'd be glad to. So Lutheran Ministries in higher education, we call it LMHE for short because the name's kind of a mouthful. We have Lutheran in the name, but it's a little bit of a misnomer. We're actually an ecumenical Christian campus ministry organization that's been around in some form or another for over 100 years in New York City. So this organization has a long history of serving students, college and grad students on campuses throughout the 5 boroughs. More recently, in the last 5 or 6 years, is when we've taken a turn from being primarily serving Lutheran students to having an ecumenical ministry. So we work with Lutheran and Methodist and Presbyterian congregations to provide an inclusive, sort of progressive Christian campus ministry presence to students across the city. So unlike maybe a traditional model that some of you might be aware of campus ministry, where there's one campus pastor who's Lutheran who serves on one campus, because we're in New York City and there are so many colleges, we have a neighborhood-based model of ministry because there's only like one me and there's, I don't know, like 100 colleges in New York. So instead of picking the one college that's going to get a ministry, we have ministry branches that are gatherings of students that meet weekly in neighborhoods where there is a significant student population. So in Uptown Manhattan, in Morningside Heights, we have a group that meets every week. We have a group that meets downtown in Greenwich Village. So that's students from like NYU, the New School, some Brooklyn colleges that come together. And then we have a group that meets in Queens every week as well. And so that's sort of our structural model. So that means we serve students, depending on the year, from anywhere between like 8 to 15 different colleges and universities. And students might be studying in the neighborhood where our ministries are present, or live there or work there, but they come together and sort of create these beautiful Christian communities that transcend the individual kind of bubbles of their campus, and they meet all kinds of people they wouldn't meet otherwise. So it's a pretty beautiful thing.
Maybe it's only as we find ourselves needing our Presbyterian and Methodists and Episcopalian friends that the necessity has pushed us into that.
Absolutely, and I think that's right. That probably has been sort of what's pushed, like the necessity has pushed us to collaboration and partnership in new ways. But like, what a beautiful thing, right? Like that's how God works. Like, oh, there's all this scarcity. Oh, wait, there's enough if we can be in relationship with each other, right? It's so fundamental, and I think we keep sort of figuring it out. But that's certainly been one of the lessons that I keep learning in my ministry so far, is just like there's with relationship, with partnership, there is more than enough, and there's so much good that can be done.
Yeah, God seems to make things work in spite of ourselves.
I've noticed that.
we come up with a plan, and then God says, well, here's another way you can do it.
Every single time, man. You know, I think that too often sort of there's a dominant Christian voice that like tries to define sort of Christianity over and against other religions, or over and against sort of the world and its temptations. I hear that a lot sort of among some of my Christian chaplain colleagues who are working in maybe more conservative traditions, are like, oh, New York City is Babylon and it's going to steal your soul if you don't like stick close with your Christian friends. And I think it's been really important for us to be like, we're not defining against anyone. Like we can hold different identities of tension. We can like explore these things. And that's sort of, both and isn't the right word, but like that sort of like holding things together and being able to see the complexity of that, that's like that's really important. And that's like, if you don't want to brittle faith, that you have to be able to do that, right?
It means you have a strong identity yourself.
Exactly.
While you're still curious about others and you feel like your identity is not necessarily fully formed, you're still continuing to learn. So tell us about how this pandemic is impacting students.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's been hard for everyone, obviously, in different ways, but I think students have had sort of a uniquely challenging time because instead of sort of hunkering down where they are, last spring, they were just like in the course of a week, like whiplashed around and then like sent home, essentially, wherever home was. And for some of them, home was not a safe place, or there really wasn't home. So so that whole experience of last March and being just sort of like flung about the world was, I think, for lack of a better word, a little bit traumatic for some of them. And they're recovering and they're okay. It was hard for the ones who didn't get to graduate or do sort of end of the year stuff when they were in their last year of college. But now it's become kind of a new normal. Some of them are in New York City, some of them are, we have students as far away as New Zealand who are logging into our online gatherings, and somebody in England, and well, now he's in Shanghai, actually. Our New Zealander, our Kiwi, went to Shanghai. Anyway, it's a long story, but the point is, we've got a big reach, people all over the world who are our students who still are doing everything online for the most part and are really Zoom fatigued, like all of us are, and all day long they're on Zoom, and yet they are like thirsting and hungering for community, because they're, you can be in class all day, but if you can't see anybody, they just don't have spaces to just be and to have fun and to like be together and support each other. So we've found that there's been a real need and desire for the sort of Bible studies and study breaks and the kind of stuff that we do every week online on Zoom. We had some in-person meetings for people who were in New York City, but we ended up stopping them just because the virus was kind of surging again. But it's been really important to continue to provide that presence, supportive space, community for students who just don't have any of that because they're not with each other in any meaningful way. But the really cool thing that we have been doing in this season is that we partnered with Trinity Lower East Side's Services and Food for the Homeless. So Trinity is a congregation of the ELCA in the East Village, and they have an amazing feeding ministry that feeds like hundreds of people through a soup kitchen 5 days a week, and also has a daily food pantry that serves, I think, maybe like 40 families a day. And so they partner with us in campus ministry generally, and we got together and said, there's this hidden face of hunger, which is student food insecurity, which I think it's getting more attention now than it has in the past, but especially in New York City, where the cost of living is so high, like a shockingly large number of students have regular problems accessing healthy, nutritious food. It's just a reality. That sort of stereotype that college students are all just like sort of spoiled and living in all you can eat dining plans, that's like not at all the reality for a huge number of students. So we got together with Trinity and we said, let's have special college student hours at your food pantry. So there's a lot of stigma for college students around hunger, and so a lot of them won't use a regular food pantry, but we said if we can do very targeted outreach to students, if we can have this run all by students, which is what we're doing, and if we can sort of create very intentionally hospitable space for students to come, maybe we can make a difference in helping students who are struggling to access food. And we launched it in September. It's open twice a month for 2 hours in the afternoon. The first day we opened, we were like, oh, maybe like 4 or 5 students will come, because it's hard. Like, how do you spread the word just in New York City? Like 45 students came in that first 2 hour block. And since then, every 2 weeks, we've been giving out between 30 and 50 bags of groceries to students from like 15 different colleges. And so, so we've seen that the need, unfortunately, is real, but the exciting thing is that we're figuring out ways to meet it. And also to help sort of lift up and develop student leadership with the students who are basically creating this program from scratch using the resources of the church and campus ministry. So it's really exciting. It's something sort of beautiful that's happening this semester in person. So I just wanted to share about that, because that is something really neat.
It sounds like you've blurred the line between who's serving and who's being served.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's the goal. Is to create sort of more of a mutual aid, empowering all the students kind of dynamic rather than a sort of charity model. Because I mean, I don't think that's as healthy, but also students are not interested in that. They're interested in empowering each other and sharing with each other. So it's been really cool to see our volunteers also use the pantry, to see the sort of way that relationships are being built. And they're sort of using their own resources to spread the word and all kinds of stuff. The students come and they like donate food to the pantry. It's pretty cool.
Cool, cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So you want to tell us about what's exciting for your family, how you're making a big move and everything? You're going to be part of my conference, and
I can't wait. So yes, my wife, Abby Furjack, who is an ELCA deacon, she's been serving for the last 5.5 years as a hospital chaplain in New Jersey, but she just a few weeks ago was called to be the new pastor of Grace Lutheran Church in Scarsdale. So I'm really excited for her. She's really excited, and we're going to be moving from where we live now on the Upper West Side of Manhattan to Scarsdale, Eastchester area in just like a week and a half, Jim. So it's a very fast turnaround. But we sort of looked at our schedule and we thought this made the most sense to just do it quickly. So I'll show you that I have a bunch of moving boxes on my floor. It's kind of a mess in our apartment. It's an exciting time of the year. We're supposed to be just waiting and watching, but we are, but we're also for Jesus, but we're also like furiously packing up our lives. But yeah, we're really excited to start a new chapter in Westchester, and hopefully as I'll be more local, maybe I won't have to wait 5 more years to come. Guys, despite what was said before. So
and you do a great job with your trivia night that we haven't we've talked about doing it in Westchester and we've never quite gotten it off the ground, but
this is a brilliant thing, Pastor Jim, because this year trivia night unfortunately is going to have to be online. But the upside is that people from all over the synod and all over the world, for that matter, can like sit in their jammies and participate in trivia night. So St. Paul's should totally bring, or the Tappan Zee Conference, whoever, should totally bring a team this year. It's February 26th. Save the date. I'll send more information in the next few weeks.
Very cool. Very cool.
That's a really neat night that brings together usually teams from congregations all over the synod and some ecumenical congregational partners too, to like just have a silly night of competing in trivia, and all the funds raised go to support our campus ministries.
Wonderful. We've gone twice. I think it's been a great time.
Well, we've appreciated your presence there. Absolutely. He's a competitive guy.
It gets serious, right?
Yeah, very. Well,
it's because of the prizes, I think, because the prizes are so amazing.
I mean, truly, the trophy that you win, if you win this, is very important. And I will personally deliver it to St. Paul's should you all win this year.
Yeah, it's a great honor.
Truly.
And do you keep the trophy, or do you have to pass it on?
You keep it for a year, and then you pass it on. So you can like display it prominently in whatever part of your parish hall or whatever it is that where you have your most prized possessions.
And should I scratch my name into the side or something so that is there forever? Or?
I have no comment about that. If that happens, I will pretend this I didn't know you were going to do it.
Becca, thank you so much. It's been good to see you.
Oh, it's been so good to be with you, Jim, and to see you and talk. I'm really grateful for this time. Thank you.
I see a lot of kid art.
Oh yeah, this is our gallery wall. My 2-year-old Harry brings home a lot of art from his daycare. Most of it, I think, his teacher does for him, which is why it's so representational. But yeah, no, we've got a 2-year-old, which is part of what makes this whole move really sort of bonkers, but also is really exciting because he currently lives behind like a wall made of giant Legos in our 1-bedroom, and soon he's gonna have his own room. So we're excited for that new chapter in our sleep life, if nothing else.
Yes, that's wonderful. That's wonderful.
It's very good.
Okay, so we look forward to the new year, and we look forward to lots of new stuff for you.
Thank you. Likewise.
Thank you, Becca, so much.
Thank you so much, people of St. Paul's. Thank you, Pastor Jim.
So you've really changed, you've really seen a big change in that ministry since you've been there.
Absolutely. So, you know, when I first arrived, we were sort of imagining a new model of doing what we called citywide ministry, but we hadn't kind of figured it out yet. And we've really discovered that that partnership is key. And so working with local congregations, working with different ecumenical partners, working with the staff at different colleges, just creating all these connections and relationships has been a really beautiful thing for us. And we've kind of thought we can do more together. It's beautiful to be Lutheran, but there's also a lot more that we can accomplish when we get together with partners who share so many more of our values than the things that make us different. Pretty much all campuses in New York City, the predominant Christian voice is a very sort of conservative, LGBTQIA excluding evangelical voice. And so we've really found that there is a space that needs to be filled with a more inclusive, justice-focused, progressive Christian presence. And that is what we've sort of tried to step into in these last 5 or 6 years, to say, like, yes, we have this theological tradition that's very rich, and that allows us to extend this broader welcome and to invite people in who may never have heard of Lutherans or Methodists and yet or Presbyterians or whatever it is, and say, how can we share this gift of theological heritage with you in a way that's accessible for you?
So what would you say is kind of the breakdown of how many students come to you saying, oh, I went to Lutheran church in Minnesota, I went to Presbyterian church in Maryland, and kids who have no, I mean, and you can kind of bring your own story into this, right? Because that's kind of your story as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think my story is that I wasn't really raised in church at all. My parents are kind of like secular humanists, and it was not until I was in college that I started studying religion and getting really interested in it and kind of exploring initially a relationship with our Jewish campus ministry, which was a place where I was super welcomed, even though I'm not Jewish. It didn't make any sense, but so I know firsthand what it is to sort of walk into a place and be like, what's going on here? And yet to be welcomed with open arms. So that's certainly been part of my story, or my sense of call, is to create spaces like that for students where they can feel loved and at home wherever they are sort of on the journey of faith, which, you know, isn't necessarily linear. But so in terms of the breakdown, we probably have maybe a little over half of our students, maybe 2/3, come from some kind of mainline Protestant tradition. Whether or not they strongly identify with that totally depends on the student. Some of them, like, were the youth representative on their church council in, you know, Minnesota, and some of them were like, I think I was Lutheran. I have to check with them. And I think some of that is because of all the congregational partnerships we have. When a college student meanders into a congregation the first week of school, they might say, hey, come back here and worship with us on Sunday, but also you should check out this campus ministry. And so, but then we also have a number of students, some who've kind of are migrating from a more evangelical or non-denominational or Baptist tradition toward sort of a more progressive mainline tradition. And so we've welcomed a number of students who that's kind of their journey. And then we actually have a fair number of students who are like Roman Catholics, Episcopalians, who are just like, don't still identify with those traditions, but also feel very welcome in our communities. And then just like occasionally a random student who is like, I don't know, like I was, who says, I don't know anything about this. Those folks are less, they're not the dominant sort of population, but they certainly are there. And we're happy to say, hey, come talk with us. We're more about questions than answers here.
So my ministry has kind of had maybe two themes, which has been a lot of Roman Catholics, which is partly the area that we live in, but also that I have that background myself. So it gets into a conversation very quickly about what is the difference. And then we have quite a few families. I mean, Westchester has an amazing amount of diversity.
Yeah.
We have families who are Lutheran and Muslim, Lutheran and Jewish, Lutheran and Catholic. So we have a lot of those. We have one family, the mom is Lutheran and the daughter is Lutheran, and the dad is Jewish and the son is Jewish, because they let the kids figure out what they wanted to do. That's been a big theme, is families that are blended like that. And that's going to be more and more going into the future, I guess, too.
Oh, I think absolutely.
I'm going to be speaking at a high school on Friday. They have a class that's a philosophy class, and they're trying to bring in different points of view about different faiths and stuff. I've done this a couple of times in the past. I did it one time with my daughter in middle school. They asked, for a rabbi and a minister and an imam. And of course, my daughter, I didn't tell my daughter, and if I had told her, she would have not, she would have poisoned me.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
But there was this one question at the end, which really kind of caught me, which was, what difference would it make if I went to one of your houses of worship or the other? And of course, what she was doing was she was asking us to compare ourselves with other traditions, which we all were very uncomfortable with. None of us wanted to say, well, you should definitely come to mine and not go to hers. But I was thinking about it, that it was really a good question, and I wasn't quite prepared for it. And later on, I was thinking that I don't know if I would have said this or not, but it's not really so much about whether you go to a Christian tradition or a Jewish tradition or a Hindu or whatever, as much as, what Christian tradition you choose, what Hindu tradition you choose. And I said, if you're a woman, what place you go to could make a big difference to how much you're accepted and to how much you're allowed to be in leadership and how much your voice is going to be heard, and how much they'll be talking about, your perspective and a more inclusive vision of things. So I don't know if I would have said that to middle schoolers. I might say it to the high school kids and I think after the attacks in Pittsburgh, at the synagogue in Pittsburgh, I kind of really focused on that. They asked me to speak at the local synagogue. And I said, there's basically two kinds of religion. There's a religion that says God is on our side and you all better stand back. And there's a religion that says God is with me and God calls me to be there for you, whoever you are. Pick any tradition you want to, and you're going to find the variations there. So, Becca, I want to thank you so much for being back with us again.
Thank you so much, people of St. Paul's. Thank you, Pastor Jim.